J.D. Vance appeared with Maria Bartiromo on Fox News yesterday, and he dropped quite a bit there. But we're going to start with his summation of what's going on with the Russiagate scandal and his prediction that there will be indictments. And if the reaction from Democrats in this town is any indication, I think they think there's indictments coming too.
I absolutely want to see indictments, Maria. Look, of course, you've got to have the law follow the facts here. You don't just indict people to indict people. You indict people because they broke the law. But if you look at what Tulsi and Kash Patel have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say that there wasn't aggressive violations of the law. What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence by defrauding the American people, defrauding the intelligence agencies, lying about what the intel said. They would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point, and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it. They took anything that actually contradicted that narrative and they buried it deep. And through that, they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through the American intelligence services. That's a violation of the people's trust. That's a violation of what our intelligence services should be doing. And I absolutely think they broke the law. And you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Here's the thing that should really bother the American people. What do you want our intelligence community to be doing? I want them to be catching bad guys. I want them to be making sure that terrorists aren't going to kill innocent American civilians. I don't want them laundering Hillary Clinton's campaign talking points into the American media and giving them this air of legitimacy. It is sick and it's disgusting. It hurt the intelligence community. It hurt the American people, and it hurt the first Trump administration. We've got to have consequences for it, or we're just going to see the same play repeated again and after.
Yeah, if anybody's wondering if the Trump administration has the will to go forward with indictments against people like John Brennan, James Comey, maybe even Hillary Clinton, as you just heard, and perhaps Barack Obama potentially as well, I think that should put those concerns to rest. They're ready. And he made a really important point there that gets lost in all of this, because people look at this and it's so bizarre to me that there's like, oh, sure, of course, the president used the CIA to, hurt his political opponents, but that's just politics. No, what are you talking about? It's like 10 times worse than anything Nixon ever did. Why? Oh, but where's the crime? Dude, if that's not a crime to utilize the CIA and the FBI to go after innocent people for political purposes, if that's not a crime, something's broken. Something's very wrong with our system. And that last part that he said there is incredibly important. It's like, we want our FBI and CIA to have a lot of powerful tools at their disposal. And yes, they should be able to conduct surveillance when necessary, even on American citizens, as the FBI did with FISA warrants, because they told a court that Carter Page, a Naval Academy graduate and a veteran of the United States Navy, was a Russian asset and working to undermine the American government. They spied on him and all the people that interacted with him, but they've never, ever brought any charges against the guy. I don't think he's ever had a speeding ticket, for God's sake. But they were able to spy on him under the color of, oh, yeah, he's a CIA, he's a Russian asset. We got to go after him. But quite the opposite, actually. The only record that Carter Page has with the Russians is like 15 years ago, he actually helped the FBI catch 2 Russian spies in New York. Did you know that about Carter Page? Well, now you do. Go ahead and look it up. That's exactly what he did. But they framed him. They framed him through a secret court to get surveillance on him so they could spy on the Trump campaign and eventually on the Trump White House. And you look at that and you say, oh, well, that's not a crime. That's no big deal. The FBI and the CIA and the development of the Office of Director of National Intelligence, they got these tools and this ability to do this after September 11th. And they got this power under the guise of, we've got to prevent the next 9/11 from happening. And there were people in this town who said, okay, nobody wants another 9/11. And yes, we want to be able to empower our intelligence community to be able to keep us safe and find out if bad guys mean us harm. But these powers used for the wrong purposes and in the hands of corrupt politicians, well, you could use this to really hurt innocent people and to amass political power. And at the time, that was waved off. In fact, it was worse than waved off. Oh, that'll never happen. And by the way, to even suggest that people at the FBI or the CIA would use these surveillance powers for political purposes to hurt somebody politically, domestically in this country, how dare you impugn the good people of the FBI and the CIA? I kid you not. That's what the debate was in this country. And now here we are. That's exactly what they did. And yes, there should be repercussions. And yes, there should be indictments, because ultimately the American people want our FBI and our CIA going after foreign powers and terrorists who mean us harm. And the entire thing was warped for political purposes. And people seem to lose sight of that. Well, it's an interesting reaction to what J.D. Vance said there about indictments coming down. Let's plow through some of these. First, of course, MSNBC.
Look, I am reasonably confident I did not commit treason against the United States of America, the country that I've served my entire career. But that's not really what they want to do, whether it's going against me or Attorney General James or Adam Schiff. They want to go shine a light on these people in their lives and follow them as long as possible to find the traffic infraction that they can lord over them to make their lives very, very difficult. And make no mistake, this is not for show. We're in the early parts of this administration. The president is under enormous pressure from the MAGA base to put these people in handcuffs. It's why for years he's talked about locking them up. They now want to see it. And I'm telling you, they are going to find it. One of these newscasts, you are going to come on a Saturday, and you and I both know this, Allie, and we're going to be reporting sort of breathlessly that one of these people on this list has been put in handcuffs, has been picked up, and is in detention. We are going to cross that Rubicon during the Trump presidency. It brings me no joy to forecast that, but that's how open-eyed we need to be about this.
All right, so that's Miles Taylor. And if you don't know the name, well, that's by design, actually, because he's famous for publishing something under an anonymous byline. It appeared, I think, in the New York Times, maybe the Washington Post. It's the same newspaper, where he identified himself as a Department of Homeland Security official in the, actually, you know what? Let me correct that. I don't think he identified himself with Department of Homeland Security. He just said he was an official in the Trump administration. And he wrote an anonymous article talking about how there were people in the Trump administration who were working together to defy Trump, to work against Trump, to minimize the damage that the bad orange man might invoke on the federal government. They were literally disobeying the head of the executive branch, the guy that the people of the United States of America voted to be the president. They were defying him, and he was bragging about it under this anonymous column, right? That's who this guy is. Now, it turns out he was kind of a low-level, like, deputy chief of staff for one of the people within the Department of Homeland Security. But still, if he worked for the administration, you're supposed to work for the president. And when the president says do this, you're supposed to do it, especially if it's something that comes within the auspices of the Department of Homeland Security. And if you defy that and work against the president and say, no, I know better, I'm not going to do what the duly elected president said with this thing that has to do with Homeland Security. Well, there actually is a word for that, and I'm pretty sure it is a criminal act. So what did he say at the beginning of this hit again?
Look, I am reasonably confident I did not commit treason against the United States of America, the country that I've served my entire career.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm glad you're reasonably confident of that, and you're probably right. I don't know if they're actually going to bring up treason charges against this dude, but they may find some charge, as he just said, oh, they're just digging into my life and trying to find the speeding ticket. Yeah, you might want to pay attention to what the DOJ just did for the last 4 years under Joe Biden, pal. But that said, this isn't about vengeance. This is about the truth, and this is about law and order, and this is about justice. So, Mr. Taylor, can I call you anonymous? Do you mind? I know that was your, yeah. Here's the thing. They might actually bring up charges against you. And just so you know, if you're wondering, my gosh, I mean, what kind of surveillance did they do on me? They looked into every email. They looked into everything that I've done my whole life until they found that I, carried a 3 over wrong on my IRS return or something. No, pal. You know what they're going to do? They're going to read your article. You confessed to the crime. You bragged about it, pal. So yeah, they might find something on you. And I think that's okay. You know who else is nervous? Michael Cohen. Yeah, that weasel. He was on MSNBC.
Look at what he's doing right now, for example, with Tish James. Look at what he's doing with Adam Schiff. And I'm going to make another bold prediction here on
a lot of predictions at 8 o'clock in the morning.
There's a lot of here. Take these notes because mark my words, politically, they're both doomed. All right. I'm telling you right off the bat, this is a political suicide for both Tish James and Adam Schiff.
More of a political homicide.
Well, yeah, but how are they going to be? How are they politically doomed if Senator Schiff comes from a blue state? Attorney General Tish James is here in a blue state. They are elected by the people. How are they doomed politically?
It'll be gerrymander. It will end up being somehow. They will end up being held
races.
Yes, but they will also be held accountable. Mark my words, they will be held accountable for the crimes that they are now looking at. That's Ed Martin who's looking at him. And I know so many people are going to say, oh my God, Michael Cohen is like bending the knee to Trump. No, what I'm doing is I'm actually telling you the reality. We could talk to each other all day long and we can say, oh, I have 1 million followers, you have 1 million followers. It's the same million followers. 77 million Americans ended up voting for Trump. Mark my words, Ed Martin, the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, they will figure out exactly how to go after Adam Schiff, how to go after Tish James for these mortgage violations. And they
alleged mortgage violations.
Alleged, correct. Yeah. And they will be held accountable. That's my next prediction here on your show. And I know that I'm right because if there is a signing of a box which is wrong, and trust me, I know I went to prison. One of my charges was on my HELOC. I had a low mortgage onto it. I had 80% equity. They held me accountable for a HELOC violation. Theirs is much worse. And rest assured, allegedly, right. So let's go one step even further here. When you have the courts on your side as well, what chance do you have of success? It's why I turn around and I say, doomed.
Yeah.
Gee, it's almost like we saw this play out for so many people over the last 4 years under the Biden administration. And he's right. They can use the law as a weapon. Although in this case, I don't think it's some minor infraction over a HELOC. Don't you love how the two boys there on the panel for MSNBC, the teleprompter readers, how they immediately jump and throw in the word allegedly every time Michael Cohen refers to what certainly appears to be mortgage fraud on behalf of Adam Schiff and Tish James. They just jump in. Oh, allegedly. Where was that, reflex, knee-jerk allegedly when you were telling me how Donald Trump was a convicted rapist? Yeah, the allegedly wasn't part of the lexicon back then. But let's just be clear here. Adam Schiff and Tish James both claimed that they had primary residence in Maryland and Virginia, while simultaneously owning property in New York and California, where they ran for office, where it was legally mandated that they had residence in those states. So I'm sorry, it seems pretty cut and dry here. Michael Cohen's no genie, no Karnak. He's no visionary by saying, yeah, I guarantee you're going to find conviction or indictments for them. Yeah, so do I. You know why? Because they broke the law. I don't know why my voice cracks when I say that. All right. But you know what? Here's the best part. Not only is Michael Cohen worried and Adam Schiff is worried and Tish James is worried and anonymous Miles Taylor worried. Jimmy Kimmel claims that he's worried. Yes, Jimmy Kimmel. Talk about delusions of grandeur. He thinks that Trump's coming after him.
A lot of people I know are thinking about where they can get citizenship and
I do have Italian. I did get Italian citizenship.
You do?
I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I do have that. And what's going on is as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Way worse.
It's so much worse. It's just unbelievable. Like, I feel like it's probably even worse than he would like it to be.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. Every once in a while, I'll Google Trump regrets or MAGA regrets just to see all the people that I'm not happy that they're upset and but it makes me hope that maybe this will bring people together.
No comment. let's go back to JD Vance. I got nothing on them. I'm sorry. I'm not going to waste any more of your time with them. JD Vance also had quite a bit to say about needing to redo the census from 2020 and about how California has an advantage because of all the illegal immigrants. But listen carefully to the words. He's so good at articulating these things because he points out the obvious fact. I think he might watch this show. That California is being rewarded for breaking the law when it comes to immigration. They're being rewarded for not cooperating with federal authorities or with ICE. They want to keep as many people illegally in the state as possible. And even more importantly, the states that play by the rules, they are getting punished for California's crimes. Watch and think it through here. This is the whole point of how it works in our republic.
So another crazy thing that I had no idea about, but everybody, even Democrats actually admit this, that the census in 2020 had a major statistical error. And what that meant is that you actually undercounted a few states that are Republican, like Florida and Ohio. You overcounted some blue states. And so what I understand, if you actually did the census anew right now, you would have 10 additional Republican seats and 9 fewer Democrat seats. And really what we're living with, Maria, is the consequence of 40 years of institutional control of the Democratic Party. These guys have fought very dirty for a very long time, and they haven't just won elections and enacted laws that we may not agree with. They have tried to rig the game for Democrats and against Republicans. And thankfully, under President Trump's leadership, you finally see some spine. You finally see some backbone in the Republican Party to fight back against these very aggressive Democratic dirty tricks. But the only way for us to do it is to actually go and do the hard work to reset the scales a little bit. What we want to do is redo the census, but importantly, we want to redistrict some of these red states, and we want to make the congressional apportionment fair in this country. Again, you cannot do it unless Republicans actually take some very decisive action in the months to come. We think they will, and we're obviously supporting them every step of the way.
But do you worry that as Republicans do that, the Democrat blue states are going to do the same thing, and then you'll have redistricting in California, New Jersey, and so on?
You know, Maria, there's just not a whole lot of juice left out of that lemon. The Democrats have already gone as far as they possibly can. Let me give you a crazy statistic. So I believe that it's in New Jersey, Illinois, New York, California, and there's one other Democrat state where you take those 5 states, you have a large number of Democrat representatives. But here's the crazy statistic. President Trump won 43% of those 5 states. And Democrats have something like 85% of the representatives out of those states. You cannot gerrymander these far left states anymore. And that's the whole point. We have unilaterally disarmed in the Republican Party. We have said to the Democrats, if you want to rig the game in your favor in blue states, go ahead. We're going to do nothing to fight back against it. That's crazy. It makes it harder for us to pass our agenda. It makes it harder for us to win elections. And most importantly, it gives Democrats this ability to run roughshod over the country without any pushback from the American people. The democratic system in this country is broken because who you vote for doesn't necessarily get reflected in who your representatives are. We're just trying to rebalance the scales and frankly, push back against a very unfair system created by the Democrats.
He's really good at that. And it's very clear and it's very concise. And you need to share that far and wide. One other clip here, by the way, of JD Vance. He did quite a bit of media this weekend. By the way, he's in England right now. Did we know that he was going to England? JD Vance sat for another interview, and the topic of FBI looking into Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. You remember, he was the guy that Kamala Harris picked to be one heartbeat away from the presidency. Apparently, the FBI was very concerned about his dealings with the Chinese Communist Party. That came up in this interview, and well, JD Vance's response is hilarious.
Also, your former competitor from the last.
Oh, I just recognized that's Jim Hoft from Gateway Pundit. Good old Jim Hoft, Gateway Pundit. How come Jim Hoft does get an interview with JD Vance? Kevin, get me JD Vance. If Hoft can get him, I can get him.
Right away, sir.
Thank you. All right. Sitting with Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit.
Also, your former competitor from the last election, Governor Walz, heard some news about him the last 24 hours where the FBI and DHS was covering for him and his ties to communist China.
Yeah. Well, this is.
Do you think they would have done this for you?
No, they certainly would not have. So this is why Gateway Pundit is so important, because you guys report on this stuff and uncover some of this stuff. And I read about it on your website, But as I understand it, the basic idea is that while the Biden DOJ was trying to throw Donald Trump in prison on fake charges, they were also aware that Tim Walz had all these connections to the Communist Chinese Party and did nothing about it. And I think all of us who followed that election closely, obviously I followed it very closely, recognize, okay, so you have a guy who's governor of Minnesota, is a high school teacher, has no reason to go to China. Like, okay, maybe once you go on vacation, but you go over 20 times over a period of years. Like, there's something weird going on there. And it seems like the Biden Department of Homeland Security actually flagged this guy as a potential security threat for his connections to the PRC. And he's not just some random guy living in Minnesota. He's the governor, and he was the potential vice president of the United States. I think in so many ways, literally and figuratively, we dodged a bullet in that election. Just amazing. The president dodged a literal bullet, but I think the whole country dodged the bullet of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And to all those who are watching in Vegas, aren't you glad you have me as vice president and not a communist agent, Tim Walz?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that guy was nuts. Bouncing around the stage and jumping around. It was too much.
Jazz hands Tim Walz.
Jazz.
Oh my gosh.
Tim Walz. Jazz hands Tim Walz. He's very funny. And yes, we are very happy to have you as our vice president instead of that disaster.